Hey guys, Tarke here, and I'm doing a follow-up on the following up on recent feedback post. So GGG is asking for more feedback, so I'm going to do my best to give some feedback. So, Archnem. In Delve, Archnem mods with heralding minions are too punishing. We've fixed this internally so they will no longer appear on monsters in Delve. This is a good change. I could have sworn we had this change last league. I might be confusing this with something else, but I feel like this is a line that I've read before. But yeah, good change. Very frustrating in Delve. Very frustrating mod in general. Wouldn't be that sad to see it just go entirely, but this is an improvement. Community feedback reports that Archnem mods that convert rewards to quality currency in Flask feel bad. We're discussing this internally, but have no outcome just yet. Internal discussions suggest there's a fair bit of team agreement that it feels bad. So players think it's feel bad. A fair bit of the team agrees that it feels bad. That implies that hopefully some change will be happening there. Now, in some sense, this stuff can actually be quite helpful early on in the league. Early on in the league, getting an entire screen of blacksmith whetstones and armor scraps is great because those are just like a bunch of portals and wisdom scrolls, and you need armor scraps early. So I think this might be one of those things where maybe this should have like a higher weighting in the axe and then it tapers off, or maybe it's a situation in the axe you're getting stuff like blacksmiths and whetstones, make it rarer in maps, and then you're getting more stuff like chisels, glass blowers, and GCPs. Getting an entire screen of chisels very, very rarely would be very exciting and feel really cool. Likewise for the flask, maybe this is a situation where it should have its occurrence rate changed so that it's fairly common in the axe where you really need all those flasks, and then maybe make it a rarer modifier in red tier maps, but then it's when the flasks drop, they're guaranteed to drop with like tier 1 modifiers on them, which is quite valuable. And if you know that like whenever a Quicksilver drops, it's going to have like a guaranteed tier 1 on there, then you probably will want to pick that up because you might ID a really nice flask, or maybe have it so the flask drop with quality, so it's a way of getting like higher quality flasks outside of just having to use Hillock. I think those are the kind of ways to go about it. They have some purpose, and it's just about making them feel more rewarding and more interesting in the endgame. As we mentioned on our last post, some players have noted they prefer item drops to have lower variance, fewer big spikes. Okay, so this is something they're still discussing. Throughout this entire league, I've been posting like random highlights and random screenshots onto my Twitter. So if you have Twitter, you're not already, follow me on Twitter. And here's an example where I got 9 6 links drop. And this was cool because I didn't have any 6 links before this point. And suddenly I had 4 6-link chests and 5 6-link weapons. And it's like, cool, I can make builds around these. This is very noticeable in SSF. From a dopamine rush point of view, I will say this wasn't like a 9 times multiplier. Like I wasn't like 9 times more excited that I got this rather than just one dropping. I would generally rather have more consistent rewards. This was kind of interesting, but I think the thing which really hammered home to me, this isn't something that I'm really a fan of, is the next day, I dropped a Shroud of the Lightless, and Shroud of the Lightless is a very nice chest in SSF because it's a way of getting a nice easy 6-link with the Socketed Gems are supported by level 25 LE penetration. This was as exciting, possibly even more exciting than this, which kind of just goes to show there's something sort of wrong there. And while, yeah, I did put that dragon scale on this current character, and that was great for that, and I might do something later on with the 6-link Thicket Bow and maybe the 6-link Flesh Ripper, my next character is built around Shroud of the Lightless. So I know it kind of goes to show that there's something not quite right there. Getting these massive explosions also has in Trader Leagues the whole MF Cull problem. I've been purposely trying to shoehorn rarity into my gear, and I feel like our gear is already spread very thin. Rarity should be a purely fluff stat. If you have it, great. It's something that I've always kind of valued in SSF. And I will say briefly, if you are currently playing Essence Drain or you're considering a new character, you can link rarity to your Contagion. And with the way the Essence Drain Contagion works, Contagion always counts getting the last hit. So shove rarity on your Contagion. But yeah, they need to work out what the issue is there. The game feels exceptionally spiky. The difficulty is very spiky. The rewards are very spiky. It needs to be normalized. In our last post, we mentioned that monsters can't drop items shouldn't have a large number of archnems and will be capped at 2 mods. This has happened internally and we deployed in an upcoming patch. Okay, we're aware of feedback around monsters applying permanent marks feeling frustrating. particularly in the context of Archden mods and Delve, but other areas of the game. So some of the Archden mods apply marks to you. There are some situations where the marks persist. It feels like after the enemies died, which was a bug they had in previous leagues with Archden. But it can also be a situation of like you see the monster, it puts a mark on you, then you lose the monster for whatever reason. Either you take the wrong corner in Delve, or in a map you just go left and you don't notice, and then you have a mark on you for the rest of the zone. Apparently there's some tech issues around this, which makes it tricky to improve. In a situation like this, I would say just stop it from casting marks. Make it just cast like a very long duration curse or something, like a curse with crazy curse effect. If permanent marks are an issue and there's like technical problems and you're like, we don't know how to fix this, then they just shouldn't be casting marks in my mind. Kalandra. In the Lake of Kalandra, rock formations don't allow you to hide from enemy attacks. Yeah, this is kind of a funny thing where there's lots of random terrain which gets in the way of your movement, and you're like, haha, I'll hide behind this, but they don't actually do anything, they don't give you any line of sight. So good that that's been fixed. This won't do anything to help the people who find the layout very frustrating, because it just doesn't work nicely with their builds and stuff like shield charge. Players have mentioned that when Beyond appears in Lake, its difficulty to reward ratio doesn't feel right. This is something that I've been hammering about for a long time, and I've been passing this on directly to people at GGG myself. I would say not just in Lake, I would say in all content, the Beyond reward to difficulty ratio doesn't feel right. I would also say Lake of Kalandra in general, the difficulty to reward ratio doesn't feel right. I've been exclusively running all of my lakes, I've not been hoarding them. You should really be hoarding them, which feels terrible to say. If you're doing tier 14 to tier 16 content, you're getting these very big tile layouts. And if you're rolling your lakes correctly, you'll be doing in the realm of about 10 maps, sometimes a bit more, sometimes a bit less, depending on RNG, setting up your perfect lake. It takes a very long time to set it up, and for the amount of time that goes into setting up to then running it, something has to change in terms of the reward to difficulty ratio. I think generally the rewards could go up a little bit, but I think really the difficulty needs to come down. And I never call for difficulty nerfs. I like very difficult content. But for the current level of difficulty, if the difficulty will stay the same, the rewards need to go up significantly in my mind. I think the best situation for GGG, since they don't really seem to want to buff the rewards that much, make the reflections more common, make the Beasts of Paradise, make the exciting tiles more common. I've had one ethereal reflection the entire league, and I've had 2 Beasts of Paradise. Make those special tiles more common, make the mists much more common. Still, I said this on Bakos, it's still true. I went from at the start of the league getting multiple base reflections where you just get given random jewelry. I used to get like 2 or 3 per map, and in the axe, to now I've never had more than 1. And I don't know why that situation is. And because you can't choose when it appears, like that might appear on like the 3rd or the 4th tile. And then it's like, cool, it gets a very poor multiplier because it gets bigger multipliers the deeper into your lakes you are. So the reflecting mist needs to be much more common. The ethereal mist, which should let you make your own, should be more common. Beasts of Paradise should be more common. Really make people feel excited to do Lake of Kalandra. Make the rewards go up a little bit and bring the difficulty down by quite a substantial margin. The final tiles on like difficulty 14, 15, 16 are significantly harder than anything else I've done this league, and probably also anything I did last league. And for that amount of difficulty, the rewards just aren't there at all. So bring the difficulty down, bump the rewards up, in my opinion. If you're not bringing the difficulty down, bump the rewards a lot, like a lot. Harvest crafting. We're making it so you can see how much life force of each type you have available in the station. Nice quality of life change. Hopefully this will be something they can roll into all situations where there's menus and stuff and you don't have access to like your stash. Yeah. We're aware that there's a lot of disappointment around certain crafts being removed. Previously, harvest crafting was balanced by how difficult it was to get the crafts that you want. Now that crafts are tradable, I play SSF. I am very much aware that people are using Discords and TFT and everything, so technically crafts have always been tradable. I will say, though, it's probably over-exaggerated how much everyone was trading. In the reality, it's probably a very small section of people actually trading, while the vast majority of players played Harvest kind of SSF. Harvest power was reduced to be more in line with other crafting methods. We understand there's a call for us to bring those crafts back, but it isn't really possible while allowing Harvest to remain tradable. This is very much where a lot of my frustration has come this entire league. And I've had some people saying, Tarke, you seem like quite tired with your like GGG post right now. It's not a situation where like I've suddenly taken on a bias against GGG or anything. It's a situation of I'm getting very frustrated having these same conversations repeatedly and repeatedly. So if you're noticing slightly more of a sarky tone in some of my vids, it's just how I'm trying to express that frustration in a humorous manner. So this is entirely a problem for their own creating, much like the current situation we have right now with MF culling and Arch Nemesis. GGG decide they want to do something a certain way, that's fine. And then it's like, well, these are the realities of that problem. And then they're like, well, what can we do? And it's like, well, I don't know, but you should have rushed this change then. Maybe you should have thought about it a little bit more before you pushed it out. So there are some crafts where I don't necessarily agree, but I can understand where they're coming from. Like they're worried with all the prefix, suffix rolling and all of that sort of thing. But what about like putting implicits on jewels? I think implicits on jewels is the kind of craft that with enough time was powerful, but it wasn't like suddenly your build is broken. It's like just a very nice flex way of getting a little bit of extra ailment avoidance, a little bit of extra reduced curse effect on you. And it can just be a nice way to tailor certain builds, and it just gives like a little extra bit of min-max for certain setups that didn't really break the game. Really, they have control over all the tuning knobs. They could make the life force costs for the very powerful crafts people want very, very high. I imagine if a bunch of crafts hadn't been removed, then players wouldn't be that upset by the fact that base life force drops were very, very low. We kind of seem to be in a situation where, like, the initial harvest craft costs, the ones that stayed in the game, were exceptionally high. The amount of life force was very, very low. They removed a lot of the crafts people wanted. And they're like, okay, what we'll do is we're going to bring a bunch of the costs down. We're going to make the life force go up a bit. But you can't have those powerful crafts because that would be too broken. And it's like, you can do some tuning there. Like, surely you can do some tuning. They do say they want to make the Eldritch currency much more common as a way to sort of be like, look, you can't have this, but if you get more Eldritch exalts and annuls, then you can sort of do some crafting that way. That works, but it only works for gear which can be Eldritched. So it only works on non-influenced helm, body armor, gloves, boots. What about all the other slots? What about weapon crafting? What about this, that, and the other? Weapon crafting is in a very interesting spot right now because of the whole Divine Orb change. I've actually kind of warmed to the Exalt Divine Orb swap when it comes to a lot of crafts, because I've been throwing exalts onto a lot of my gear. I have genuinely been like exalt crafting a few pieces. I've been exalting some 3 modules and had generally quite good results. But I do think that we need some sort of way of being able to more reliably divine key weapon slots. Because the difference between having a top and a bottom roll on like a fizz bow or like a fizz axe or whatever is absolutely massive. And that's a situation where like you're not doing an Eldritch, you're not doing Eater of Worlds axe craft. So it's kind of, this sort of hits some item slots, but then completely ignores others. And something needs to change there. I think most people would probably be happy if Harvest was entirely SSF. Like, you can't trade life force, you can't do anything. But people felt like it was more accessible to them. The whole Harvest change and everything still just doesn't really seem to be serving anyone. Like, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what the upside of this new Harvest system is. Like, the old system, Trade League players found it frustrating because they could get scammed if they were doing like TFT and stuff. So GG was like, okay, we're going to get rid of the scamming. So we've got this whole new system, but because we've got this whole new system, we have to remove a bunch of the really powerful stuff. So like SSF players got completely shafted by this change. More casual players who didn't use third-party tools, they got shafted by this change. A lot of the fun sort of like incidental crafts, like the jewel stuff I talked about, they're gone. And then you've lost a lot of the powerhouse stuff. It needs more work. We are 2 weeks into the league. I would say their main priority at this point needs to be making Kalandra itself more rewarding and more enjoyable to do. I think this should be their #1 priority. And this is something which I think kind of has to be changed within the next week. This is something that I would like to see improved for players this league. But at the very least, by next league, I think there needs to be some real conversations and actual like meaningful change happening around crafting in general. The Eldritch stuff, cool, great, but yeah, what about the other item slots that don't really get affected by this change? I would say Archnem difficulty in general, I think I'm kind of happy with it as is. From the point of view of the two characters I've played this league, I'm now making a new character which is going to be an attack build, and I'm purposely trying to try as like many different elements of like PoE build to get a very well-rounded opinion. So I've played a Trapper, I've played a Poisonous Concoction build, I'm now leveling a Bow character, I'm probably going to do like a Sunder build at some point as well, and then we do some like other just traditional spellcastery things. But yeah, from the point of view of the two builds I have played, I do think Archnem difficulty is probably in a pretty good spot with the most recent nerfs. I do think the reward situation is still a problem that needs addressing soon, but as I keep saying, Kalandra itself, the difficulty is the main thing which really needs sorting out. But anyway, I'm Tarke. What's your thought on these, not necessarily changes, but these like proposed conversations and some proposed changes in there? Yeah, what are you thinking of everything? Have a good day. Bye-bye.